Mr. Wittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your service to our nation. And I want to begin by noting that everybody that serves in our armed forces are special. They're special because they volunteer, they put their lives on the line to defend this nation. But we also have a very elite force of airmen, Marines, soldiers, and sailors that serve this country every day in some very, very challenging roles as we place them around the world in what we know continues to ever expand in their mission. I look at how we've challenged them, and you look at what's happening in Afghanistan, and we've used them in more and more roles there, and obviously they're going to be there past 2014. We see a mission now in Central Africa. As we watch and we see the history of what's happened there, we see some trends that I think ought to concern us. Just last month, a 29-year-old Sergeant First Class in the 75th Ranger Regiment was killed on his 14th deployment in the last 9 years. 14 times he boarded a plane knowing that he was going downrange in harm's way. In a situation where dwell times were short, time back home was short, and they continue to be placed in some of the most challenging conditions anywhere on the face of the earth. And to their benefit, they serve this nation, or to our benefit, they serve this nation, and they continue to make sure that they perform in a very admirable way under some very trying conditions. My this is with budget cuts and looking at the challenge we have going forward with resources, how are we going to continue to attract the quality men and women that we need across the armed forces in an all-volunteer force? And secondly, as we look to not only recruit the best, but to retain the best, how are we going to make sure that the mission capability stays where it needs to be for this nation to meet those challenges, especially when there's questions about each of the service branches, budgets, what may be cut, the future pay of our men and women in uniform, their future benefits, and also their families' welfare. I think all those things are very, very concerning for me, and I wanted to get your perspective on how do we meet those challenges. And I can tell you, I'm sure you all get the same questions that I get. I get questions on a daily basis from men and women that serve this nation that are concerned about that. In fact, we track the communications that come into our office. At the top of the list for the past month have been service members and their families' questions about what happened with my pay and my benefits, and what are you going to do to support military families. So, gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you and get you to give us your perspective on things.
Well, Congressman, first and foremost, as we go through this process of budget reductions, the first thing we think about are our soldiers and their families and the impacts that it will have on them. And whatever programs that we develop into the future will ensure that we maintain programs that are good enough and, frankly, allow them to want to continue to serve. And we are focused on this. We are absolutely focused on this. And I think what we have to do as we look at this is it's about the profession of arms, it's about leader development, it's about people understanding the importance of what we do, why we do it, and it's about fair and balanced benefits and pay, retirement, medical care, that they can be assured that they will be taken care of and their families will be taken care of based on what we ask them to do. And I know I'm being somewhat general here, but I want to tell you that we are absolutely focused like a laser on this in the leadership, because it's so important to our men and women, and it's fundamental to the all-volunteer Army and the all-volunteer force. And if we miss this, it will do irreparable damage to our capabilities. And so I probably didn't answer you specifically, but I'm telling you, as we look at this very carefully every day, sir.
We have a term in the Navy on budgeting called fencing, fence the program. We're effectively fencing family readiness programs because whatever mission may be reduced, capacity is reduced, the problem's not reduced. That we need to, as you mentioned before, the kids are tired and they come home and their families are tired too, because that's who supports them. So that has to be done right up front. I think we need to hold the covenant. General Odierno I call it retain the covenant we have from them. They joined for a reason. There was again, a contract that we had, and we need to own up to that contract with those that join. Thank you.
Sir, I would just say that as an example, like the Navy, we have said we're not going to cut school liaison, we're not going to cut exceptionally family member programs or child care. And we'll go other places because we understand that more than ever, that service in any of the armed services is a team sport.
Congressman, you've coined the term breaking faith or keeping faith, which is the opposite of breaking faith. You know, we talked of pay compensations here this morning, and we didn't really get to the, you know, at what point is there a knee in the curve where pay and compensations begin to have an effect on the all-volunteer force. You go back to what Secretary Panetta began his tenure with, and he's got several principles. One of them, one of the key ones he always goes back to, and every time he talks publicly, is keeping faith. Now, that can mean a lot of different things to folks, but for us in the Marine Corps, it means the institution, the people, the Marines, the families that are out there in 29 Palms, Pendleton, Camp Lejeune, Beaufort, look at us as an institution, the leadership, those that wear this uniform, and then those who are across the Potomac here in Congress, that we have their best interest at heart, that even though they understand there will probably be some adjustments in paying allowances and that type of thing, but we have their best interest, and we are not breaking faith with them. That's pretty nebulous, but that's a sense. And the minute we lose that, then we will have a difficult time retaining them. We'll have a difficult time bringing people back in the first place. So that's the first point. It's a sense of faithfulness. There's another side of this which is interesting, which concerns me. There is also a sense of fulfillment in the young man or woman that joins the Marine Corps today, and you're aware of that. They are actually getting to do precisely what we advertise when we recruit them. There is a fulfillment. They may be on their fourth or fifth deployment, and I absolutely am not saying that that's easy, or we should just continue to do this for the sake of recruitment. But there is a sense of feeling good about what they're doing for our nation. So as I look at the drawdown, I look at coming out of Afghanistan, within this institution, one of the things we're going to have to look at is how do we address that sense of that need, a sense of fulfillment of doing something that's important for our nation. Now, I remember the interwar years, the 70s to the 80s to 90s, when it was pretty bleak. You know, we were trying to seek missions. So that's going to have an effect on the retention, and that's one of the challenges we're going to have to look at. But I think the programs, all the things we've talked about here, there's a sense that we will need that. It's not that we're buying people off. That's not it. But we are going to satisfy their needs and keep our arms around them, and they're going to know that we're keeping faith with them.
Thank you, Mr. Wittman.